Welcome to today's the last day in February, right? The February Dean's Corner. And so we've got a little bit of new technology here, so we hope it all works. But apparently we're joining the 21st century with our streaming services now. And our great people who run them, whom we need to say thank you to every once in a while. So thank you. So we're going to start out really quickly. I just wanted to say hello, and I'm going to hand it right over to our favorite HR person. And she's going to tell us.
Before I used to be the only one, so yeah. So I'm happy I moved up in the agenda a bit. So instead of being last, I'm first. So I'm glad to start with welcoming our first crop of new hires of 2018. So I'm pleased to welcome, we'll start with les Frédéric au carré. Yeah. So Frédéric Giuliano, who's with us this morning, the new archivist and archive. And a little bit further, Frédéric Lepage, the new records management administrator. Welcome, Frédéric. We've reached our maximum of Frédéric on staff now. We have to move to another letter. Earlier this month, actually not earlier, but just a few weeks ago this month, Natalie Waters was welcoming 3 new staff members. We have Lucy Keister with us. I saw Andrea and Nouri walking in, but oh, good Lord, just like Colleen. So Andrea and Nouri. So Lucy, Andrea, and Nouri are working in Schulich. Welcome. We also welcome Clara Torp earlier in the month of January. Clara is working with Andrew Sr. in collection services. And finally, Steve, all the way in the back. Welcome, Steve. Steve is a programmer, and he's working in the application development team. Did I get the title right? Cool. With Gagandeep. Steve, just so you know, it took like 3 or 4 searches before we could find you. So please, make yourself comfortable. Stay put. Because I know where you live. So, so welcome to all of you. It's a pleasure to have you with us today and for many, many years, Steve. So in addition of new hires, we had a few internal movement in the month of January and February. So Carlo Della Motta, who had started last fall as a senior library clerk in Osso, will be working as a supervisor for a while Elizabeth is looking after law for a few more months. We have also Jillian Miles, who's with us today. Hi, Jillian, who joined us back last spring, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Oh, fall, boy, time flies. So she came back to us, to Islamic as a senior library clerk, and she just accepted a position in ILL in replacement of Jackie Brazil. And Iris, I don't see Iris, but Iris started as a casual, a temporary employee last summer, and she just obtained a regular position at the Humanities and Social Sciences Library. So that's about the internal movement. Oh, God, sabbatical leaves. For the people who were here in December, this is when I made my bit of faux pas, so I guess the provost felt pressure to accept those sabbatical leaves. So anyway, those 4 people, Giovanna, Eamon, Jen, and Don were approved. They left in February and in March. They're working on fun and interesting things, and they will come back at the end of the summer to let us know about everything they discovered during their sabbatical leave. Next, well, I always say the same thing, rien ne se perd, rien ne se crée. with welcoming, we do have farewell also. So we will be losing Jane Atkins, our system librarian, after 43 years of services. Steve, 43. We'll be losing also Nalini Baga after 39. You know, I'm disappointed, Nalini, only 39. Steve, 39. And we'll also be losing to retirement Irene Wu, who's with us today. Irene started 42 years ago. She even worked in ISR before joining the library. So Jane, Nalini, and Irene, congratulations, and we hope to see you again. And we'll also be losing Timothy Gouger. Timothy works in Schulich as a senior library clerk. If you remember, Tim was doing his MLIS part-time. So he found a job in New Brunswick in a public library, and I wonder if it's not the position that you left vacant, because again, you know, rien ne se perd, rien ne se crée, n'est-ce pas? So currently we're working on 4 searches. So we're looking for 2 liaison librarians for rare books and special collection. We're looking for a senior library clerk in the humanities and social sciences unit to replace Nalini, and we're also looking for a senior library clerk at the Islamic Study Library to replace Jillian. And finally, the upcoming searches from you know, our last big plan of last year is those 3 positions: liaison librarian, system librarian, and coordinator of data curation and scholarly communication. Some of those positions are maybe a bit on the back burner. We're trying to reassess now where we might be going. Sometimes we plan for something, we have more vacancy, and things change. There's more other vacant positions, so if you're a head librarian or a supervisor and you don't see your position there, please, no need to panic or send me an email or call me. It's the ones that are bubbling at the surface at this point, but yours are there and not forgotten. So finally, just a little reminder, Librarian Excellence Award and also Library Staff Excellence Award are closing this coming Friday, so please submit names. All the information, all the forms to fill out are on the library website. So we'll be accepting application until 5 p.m. Friday, March 2nd. And that's it for me.
Good. Great. Good morning. And welcome. We have a lot of new faces here this morning, so I'm delighted to be able to update all of you on the strategic planning process that we've just undertaken and the results that have bubbled up and been developed from that process. Since we have so many new people, I thought it would be worthwhile to just give you a quick run through of the process that we followed. In early December, the entire library staff met over 3 half-day sessions. We met in the New Res Ballroom to discuss the issues facing our library and to strategize on how, as an organization, we can meet the current and future needs of our users, our students, our faculty, our researchers, and how we can meet those needs most effectively. We asked the question, what do we need to do to be the best research-intensive library system in Canada, always with a user-focused perspective. So our dean chaired each of the 3 sessions using a tool called nominative group technique. Everyone at the table, and we had between 50 and 60 people at each of the 3 sessions, everyone at each of the tables was encouraged to speak, share their ideas, and each comment provided was written down by our faithful scribes who are here. Major job. Literally hundreds and hundreds of comments were offered and documented under 4 categories: HR, service, collections, and facilities. When every idea from every table was received, the comments were taped to the wall. Each person then received 5 dots or votes. And after reviewing all the comments on the walls, people voted on what they felt was most critical. Over the next few weeks, the communication and planning teams transcribed all of the comments from every sheet, pulled together the votes, pulled together the comments. Many were very similar, so we merged them together. Pulled it all together and ranked them according to how you voted. So with this documentation, the Dean's Cabinet headed off to a 2-day retreat to review and discuss the ideas that were generated by you. We had really fruitful discussions, and because of your input, we were able to develop 6 key themes, which became the basis of our strategic priorities. Our key focus for the upcoming 2 to maybe 3 years. The other recommendations, and there were many, were ranked accordingly, and they will be addressed over the upcoming years. In the past, we've called many of them low-hanging fruit. They were great ideas. We'll tackle them. We'll do them. Others probably take a little bit longer, but they're itemized, all on the internet, ranked, and they're called the top 100 priorities. Let's see. I'll walk you through the structure of the top 100, and then we'll delve into the top 6 key. So I do encourage you to go onto the internet if you haven't done that yet. Everything is documented there. I encourage you to read all of the documentation and think about how you can be involved in making these ideas happen. The owners of each activity have been identified as the relevant associate dean. Of course, they won't be doing all of it. They'll be working with their various units, and we'll be developing working groups to make these ideas a reality. You'll notice that not everything that's listed can actually become a reality, but we listed them nonetheless. Some will have to wait for the new building that is part of our strategic plan, and others are simply not possible. So, but we wanted to be transparent, and we've listed them so that you can see. So, any questions about the process for those of you that were there or those of you that weren't there? Good. Well, let's kick off. I thought I'd start with the top 100 strategic intentions. I'm not going to go through them all. That would take a long time. I just want to familiarize you with how they're structured. And I mentioned we had the 4 categories. Here are the first 10 or so that bubbled up from the HR category. And you can see that you really voted with your feet here. The number 1 request is that we continuously review staffing levels in all departments to meet service needs. 47 votes in that area. Closely followed by increase and improve training for staff. We recognize we have a lot of new people. We've been bringing many people on board over the last few years. This really reflects a very strong request from all of you to ramp that up. And you'll see that we've actually put that in as one of our top 6 strategic priorities. It's so clear that needs to be done. You also asked us to consider new hires in key areas, specifically conservation preservation, research commons. You asked us to develop an inclusion and diversity strategy, and so on. So you can see how they're ranked. You asked us to implement a 360-degree evaluation of supervisors and managers. We will consider that. Some things we will absolutely consider, that including skills and language inventory of all staff. So, HR. On the facilities category, number 1 request, improve cleanliness in all branches. And we certainly hear you and are continuously working, all the branch heads and planning and resources, we'll continue to work with our facilities groups to improve that. The number 2 request, which is a definite yes, is to improve the quality teleconferencing facilities and equipment between MAC and our boardroom. So heard it loud and clear, and we will be doing that to help integrate the two. Faster response to resolving technical issues, expand the research commons, and here's a case where lobby at Hustle should be totally redone. We'd love to, but with Fiat Lux coming, this will be our focus too, for major facilities changes, but we will do what we can. And I wanted to say thank you to the art group for putting up those beautiful paintings. It just lifted the whole lobby. Thank you for that. Service. Oops, sorry. I shouldn't be driving. Here we go. No, I needed to flip my page. On the service side, the recommendation was to integrate information literacy into the undergraduate experience. A fun one was the library cat. We're listening to that. We have to be very aware of allergies and other health and safety issues, but you can see we had some fun at the strategic planning, as well as some serious work getting done. We were asked to offer a space where staff can exercise. We will attempt to do that in the new Fiat Lux space permitting. We were asked to consider increasing French on the library website, and that's a great idea, and we're going to tackle developing a bilingual information for visitors page to start that process. Could I go to the next one? Thanks. On the collection side, move to a new library system platform, have the most accurate catalog possible when we moved the collection into storage. And the request that we really show that we value our print collections in addition to our electronic, more book displays, inventory, binding and repairs, more highlighting of the rare books collections. And the 4th highest ranked was to be in the top 3 in Canada in collection buying and development. So strong recommendations throughout all 4 categories. Any questions about this, as I go along? Don't hesitate. Right, so those were just a highlight of our top 100. You can see from those, we were able to then develop our top 6, which we feel are strong and focused. The strategic priorities, I'll just list them and then I'll delve into them for you. To transform our space in response to changing needs of our community. In other words, launch the Fiat Lux building project. We've been focusing on this since 2014, and we're getting ever closer, and we have some good news about storage, and I'll mention that in a minute. Deliver innovative library support for faculty and students, so that's on the services side. Enhance online access to our collections, implement a new library services platform. Remember the staff training request, it's here in the top 6. Empower staff, focus on staff training, and foster a healthy environment for our staff. And finally, preserve and share unique treasures with the world. So let's look at those in detail. So on the Fiat Lux side, we really do need to transform our spaces in response to changing needs. The great news is that we've got a green light to develop a true plan for storage on the MAC campus, and we're moving ahead with developing that plan with architects that we have worked with in the past. So that's underway. What that means for us is our major focus for the next few years will be to develop prepare the physical collection for storage. This is a huge job, and we'll all be involved with it in one way or another. You can see the executive owners. We've listed the relevant associate deans. They will be reaching out to all the appropriate people to make these tasks happen. Speaking with other libraries that have moved their collection, it is a multi-year process, and lots of work there. We'll then develop an ingestion plan for moving the books into storage. The other major task is to continue with seeking funds for Fiat Lux to secure the philanthropic donations, and Colleen Cook has been actively involved with that, as many of us are, for the past few years, and that will be a major focus. Then, the next step, that's the storage, then to develop a document along with our colleagues in planning here on campus, develop a dossier d'opportunité to actually describe the plan for the new building and to get approval from the Quebec government. So, on the user services side, we want to deliver innovative library support for our faculty and our students. And I mentioned, you probably saw it on the strategic intentions, but we want to integrate information literacy initiatives into the undergraduate experience, a real focus. Delving further into that, we want to expand the research commons. We want to grow the digital scholarship program, and we also want to look at supporting the integration of library resources into the curriculum further. Yes?
Just a question, so about the research commons being expanded? Oh, sure. Yeah, sorry. Just a question regarding the research commons expansion. I see it listed here under user services, but I didn't see it listed under spaces, and I'm wondering if you're considering that as an area that's of importance as well in terms of transforming our spaces for changing user needs. Because currently, where the research commons is at, it's a little bit kind of cramped in there, and it's going to, if it's going to expand, it's going to need a much better, different kind of sort of space, I'm just wondering if that's something that's been considered at all.
Yes, yes. There's kind of two phases to the research commons. What can we do to expand the research commons in the limited spaces that we have here? Think about short-term solutions for expansions. How can we make what we have better? Can we expand further? Do we look at spaces in Schulich? What do we need to do? So short-term, i.e. the next couple of years, in our existing space, how do we expand? And then, of course, when we move into planning for Fiat Lux, then we have a great opportunity to really do it very comprehensively.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Do you also want to talk about the Digital Scholarship Hub in terms of space?
That would be great. Good. Do you want to mention the, yes? Great.
And related to that and the Research Commons, the next item on there about growing the Digital Scholarship Program. Part of that, I think you've heard from the manager's meeting notes, is that we're looking at a Digital Scholarship Hub to deal with, a space where we can pull together all of the existing training we're doing on campus, all the workshops we're doing, partner with other campus units, and that's going to have a small space in this building as well. So that's a part of this space transformation just within the confines of our current building while looking to Fiat Lux for the future.
Thank you. Yes, it's the space we have right now is challenging, but ideas are very welcome to improve it. Great, thank you. So, on the staff training side, we really heard loud and clear that a strong orientation program for new staff is definitely needed. And we're proposing to put together a program for new hires based on a cohort model So every 6 months, whoever has come on board in that 6 months, we have a program that rolls through. If others want to sit in on that, that's fine, but we're really focusing on the orientation program for new hires, and we'll hopefully have that ready for the second 6 months of this year for you. So we'll be working on that with HR and Planning and Resources, as well as all the other deans will assist. We're also really want to provide the training opportunities for in-depth expertise, specific expertise that you need. We heard NACO training from our collection services team, PCC, Program for Cooperative Cataloging, liaison onboarding, service training, et cetera. So specific training matched to the needs of your unit or group or you. We talk about developing an open doors orientation program. That's really an open house where we, once a year, we'll throw open the doors. People can visit, understand what everybody does in the various branches and units, but formalize that. And we're also going to investigate increasing CIS employment opportunities wherever possible. Good. On the continuing with staff needs, we really want to foster a healthy environment for staff, and we will be launching a health and wellness committee to facilitate staff-driven initiatives like volunteer opportunities, exercise, mental health. What it'll be, you'll drive this committee to create a healthy environment for all. We're going to provide diversity training, continue with that diversity training for the hiring committees and all interested staff, continue to support the mentoring program for librarians, assess progress, see how we're going, and also expand the job shadowing program for support staff and assess that progress as well. Now, the fifth major strategic priority is focused around ROAR, Rare, Archives, Art. What have I missed? Osler, sorry. I was thinking, what is the O? On my way to work this morning. Sorry, Osler, of course. Rare, Osler, Art, and Archives. There's been a tremendous amount of activity, growth, and progress in the ROAR unit. And I'll just read the statement. Their goal is to transform the student experience, unleash the research potential of the ROAR collections, and enhance community engagement with rare materials in a sustainable way. To those ends, they're building on feedback from the recent cyclical review. This coming May 11th, there will be a colloquium where they'll be focusing on how to move the whole program forward. It will really be a backbone to the comprehensive and strategic communications plan that they're developing. And they will continue to do all the remarkable things they're doing with public events, community partnerships. They're going to explore new funding opportunities and digital platforms, and continue to increase the visibility of the collections.
Including as recently as last night.
It's like every night. It's a busy. I like the tone of this. Good. So, and the sixth strategic intention is to enhance access to our collections and implement a new library systems platform. Before we move on to an update in that area, I just want to make sure everybody has a better understanding of how we did this, why we did it, and where we're going with our strategic intentions. Any questions for me or for my colleagues? Great. Well, the library services platform, I will turn over to Colleen to address. Let me just give you some sound.
First, I have to say thank you to everyone who has been involved in our planning process. This is a process that we try very hard to involve everyone in because we think everyone has something to say. And I think we succeed with that fairly well. I hope we do. If we can do it better, then let us know. But what we get out is only as good as what we put in. And there's a lot of good thinking that goes into this, and it's very worthy of a thank you. So particular thanks to the ADs who really worked incredibly, and communications who worked incredibly hard on getting that out. And we do update it all the time. So those little green lights, yellow lights, red lights mean something. And it's only as good as getting information back out to you and making sure that we get things done. Okay, and a reminder that we do this again when we've just about finished everything that's on the current list. So when everything kind of turns to green, we'll do it again. Okay, that may be a year and a half, it may be 2 years, it may be 3 years. So however long it takes. So I'm going to talk about BCI and the shared services platform and where we are in that process. And this is something that I think that everybody knows something about, and I'm sure that everybody has a pretty strong opinion on. This is not something that, it's not one of those things that people tend to feel neutral about. Okay, so here is where we are. Just a little bit of history so that everybody kind of knows how this process works. The libraries in Quebec, there are 18 of us, so it's from very little to, as big as UDM and McGill, got together and said we would like to do a shared platform. For the benefits of a shared platform, there are some things that, of course, can be more facilely done if they're done in a shared platform. And also the very idea of cooperation and the idea of going to the government for a grant to help us do this. So we have been working for months, years actually, in this, and the process has been very, very, very thorough. I can tell you, I don't think that I'm quite up to that number of years of some of the people who are about to leave in my experience as a librarian. But in my experience as a librarian, I have never seen as thorough a process as this one. It has been, ever, by some orders of magnitude, ever, probably. So various of you have been working on working groups, and everybody's opinions coming in, and we've had various vendors go out and do demonstrations, and for that I need to say thank you to everybody who has labored in the fields with that. And as I said, the process has been extraordinary, sometimes grueling, and I just have to say thank you for all of that, okay? So in the end, you have to make a choice. And we have a process in Quebec as a provincial, a government institution. There are certain rules that you have to follow. And we are in the middle of this in terms of a bid process. Anything that costs as much as a system like this costs has to be bid. Anything over $100,000 has to be bid. And there is, in my understanding, there's no way to get around the bid process, even if you wanted to get around the bid process, which we don't want to do because we're basically rule followers. In terms of being stewards of the public's trust, we're not going to play around free and easy with someone else's money, all of our money. It is possible to do something that's called a sole source bid. Sole source bid, and this exists in all state government, provincial, I'll just say government institutions because I get that confused. Because it doesn't make any sense to go out for a big competitive process when there's only one system out there or one thing out there that can do what you need done. And so it saves everybody time, it saves money. Okay, so that process exists, and it's something that you can do absolutely legally. There's nothing funny about it. It's just, it's just the way it works. That option is out there. Okay, the thing that is very interesting in this province, and something which I have never heard of before, is that institutions have to commit to an outcome of a bid process before they know what the outcome is. I've never heard of this before. This is the only place I think that this exists. And it has a history in Quebec because of some problems that have happened at universities here before. So it's the law, it's what's real, it's it. So essentially, you have to agree to a bid outcome before you know what that outcome is. This is not like anything, the whole reason normally for a bid process is for you to hear different competitors out there to see which one does the most for you at the least expensive price. And that's what you choose, right? You choose what you're going to get the most out of, the greatest good for the few dollars that we have. Okay, so we are now at a point, all institutions in Quebec, all 18, have to decide whether we are going to opt into this process or not. We are going to opt out. And we are going to opt out for the very reasons that I have said, that we are not willing to say, after tons and tons of thought and tons of input from not only librarians here, but administrators on campus, people in the purchasing department, people in the James building, the provost, the principal, the vice principal for administration, we are now opting out of that process. You are the first to officially hear this because I thought, and I believe strongly, that those who are most involved in this process need to know first. Okay, there's an official document that has been signed by the administrators at the university saying we are now out of this process. Okay, so let me tell you why I feel that we could not risk this. There is a bid process means that, that if you can think of, well, I don't know, I won't say that, but we used to do this all the time for cereal vendors, remember? When we would have all of these, we would have a vendor would come in and be a broker for all of our cereals and whatever. It's really no different from that. In the sense of, you've got a vendor who you think's going to do the job, and then you've got a bunch of people who bid, and you don't think they can do the job. In any traditional kind of practice, you get a bid and you can choose But the way this process works here, we can't choose. We are literally obligated to take what comes out of this process without us knowing whether it will be good for us or not. Okay, now, so the reality of this is that probably, and you need to take the word probably advisedly, you can lean into your crystal ball and you can say, are there vendors out there which are probably going to come to the surface and be the most competitive? Yes. And we would be foolish and stupid and ill-advised if we didn't recognize that in this process there are probably 2 vendors who are coming out and being spoken about the most. That doesn't mean that in the end, one of those 2 will be the one that's chosen. Probably so, but not necessarily so. Okay, there's risk in that, huge risk. Okay, so let's say that there are 2 vendors out there, and we all know who they are, and I'm not going to, I can tell you that right now, because of a lot of things, our decision of what we're going to do is that we're going to go with the OCLC platform. I'm coming out and I'm saying that, and I can say it because I can say it now because we are not in, we've pulled out of a bid process, and I can tell you that I can say that now because we aren't in the bid process. I am not even comfortable with mentioning terribly much the other vendors because that process is still going on and I'm not going to interfere with it. It's a legal sort of thing. So let me tell you why. This is why we're going to do this and why OCLC. Okay, so again, I would be somewhere between foolish and naive if I didn't know that if you mention OCLC, there's a knee-jerk reaction against it for a lot of people. I mean, and for a lot of reasons, for a whole lot of reasons. It's, for a lot of reasons, a lot of, pros and cons and whatever. But there's a knee-jerk, visceral sort of, OCLC isn't the right thing for an academic library, particularly a research library like McGill. I've heard that, don't forget, I've heard that since I was a pup. Mark Format is older than I am. Is older. Mark Format was devised in the 1960s. A whole bunch of you weren't even born then. I won't have you raise your hand because it's probably illegal. And my HR person mentions to me every once in a while when I do illegal things. But a whole lot of these platforms are designed around a system that did nothing but put the information on a card according to Anglo-American cataloging rules and parsed it up so that a machine could read it. If you think this is really exciting, I don't. I would much rather take our very limited resources, do the mundane things that we have to do, including a whole lot with those MARC records, because there are like millions and millions and millions of them in the world, and we can't just tell them to go away. But do I think MARC is the end-all be-all of finding information? No, I don't. At all. I think we need to think well beyond these platforms, and we need to get the normal work done in as efficient a way as we can so that we can think beyond this. Beyond a system that is based in the heart of it, all of these systems work around the bibliographic data. That is based in a 1960s world view. We need to be thinking beyond that. We have Louis, who has done great work, which sometimes he wants to hide under a barrel, but which shows in concrete ways that maybe we shouldn't be investing tens of thousands of dollars every year, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in A&I and all of our A&I resources, our databases. Why? Because you can get it free. Maybe it's pirated, but that's the reality of it. What does this world mean? And so when we come down to a decision that has a lot of risk, and the risk is involved in using your gray matter to run a library platform system that's harder to run than OCLC, or we keep going with OCLC, and we can make sure that we do things as efficiently as possible so that the most important resource is human heartbeats, in my view. We can put your energy and thinking into these future things, into things that push us beyond the edge of what we're doing, push us beyond thinking that what are the limitations of being stuck with a MARC format? Okay, is all this going to change overnight? No. Okay? But do I think that in terms of limited resources, we need to put ourselves there? We know that if we, okay, so, you know, just a little bit of background. We, 4 or 5 years ago, we went through a really tough time here in terms of, one of the more tough times because we had to cut our staff by $2 million in the middle of the fiscal year. And we couldn't just cut it willy-nilly. We had to cut it in certain categories, and that was support staff. I couldn't cut librarians. That was a little weird, but you know, you either follow the rules or you decide to leave. I decided I was going to stay. I like Montreal. I like my job. So we cut $2 million in the middle of a fiscal year in terms of staff. We did that by a lot of retirements, by a lot of people leaving, by moving things around. We didn't have to fire anyone. We closed libraries. We did all sorts of things. But in the end, we had 40 fewer staff members than we have now, and we had to do things more efficiently. And so using OCLC, we don't do a lot of moving data around. It all stays in one place. All of that time that we used to be pulling things or getting vendor loads and taking that and moving it into our local system, we don't need to do anymore. It saves a monumental amount of time. We were able to take people who were doing copy cataloging, which to me is not the most stimulating work on the planet, having done it myself, and to have original catalogers do original cataloging, not just this piecework of, I'm going to do subject headings or I'm going to do call numbers on adaptive cataloging. That, and fortunately, we have catalogers here who can really do that work. There are lots of places where catalogers, because of the way we've run things, there are a lot of catalogers out there, I can tell you, who can't really catalog. They don't know enough to catalog, do original cataloging from scratch in a real way. Ours know how to do that, and they're doing it. 1 out of every 4 things that we do in rare books is original that we pick up. So my idea and what we're doing is that we are moving valuable human resources into work that requires that value. Nothing more important than the intellectual capacity that you were born with, that your parents nurtured you with, and that your teachers taught you. That's my view. I don't want to spend time doing stuff we don't need to do, particularly when the risk is enormous and we don't have a choice. So we have done cost comparisons against what it takes us to do with running our processes with OCLC and what it would be to move to one of the other systems that's out there that's being talked most about. we know that we would need at least $500,000 more in recurring money in staff to do it. And that staff, to some great extent, would be doing work that I don't think human beings should be doing. I mean, I honestly, I've done that stuff. I mean, when we needed to and we had no choice, that was one thing. But when we don't need to do it anymore, and we need to be thinking about the big things like, do we really need our A&I databases? Are we willing to take the risk of canceling them? And taking that, how much? $250,000, probably more in the name, millions. Take those millions of dollars and do something else with it. Imagine some of the research commons services that we could actually be doing. So, not sure I have any more to say. I know I can tell you this. I know that there are fewer things in my 40 years of being a librarian. I was a baby when I became a librarian, but still it's been 40 years. That is more emotional than the choice of a cataloging system. People believe these things to the point of it's not even professional judgment a lot of times. It comes down to values. And you can't argue with people about values because people have their own value system. Their values are not right or wrong. They are their values. And I am never going to be able to talk you out of your values. But I can tell you that you have heard me say, put on the table what my values are. In the end, it's we have a very, very, very limited amount of money here. I was looking at ARL statistics again yesterday because I have to write my own annual performance review, which, by the way, is due tomorrow for those of you who do things at the last moment. But it'll get done. It'll get in, believe me, but I never do anything before the last moment. I was looking at us again, comparing what we do, and I don't know how we do what we do. I can just tell you that, in terms of the money and the resources we have. And it's because we make some of these hard choices, and we're just going to do it. We have to do the things that matter the most. This is going to drive some of you crazy. I know that. And I hear for you. I feel for you. I know these are value things. And this is just the best thing that we can do right now. So, have I forgotten anything from those of us who are helping me with this? Yes?
You mentioned that there are 19 institutions in BCI.
There are 18 of us
18?
altogether.
Is McGill the only one, as far as you know, that is withdrawing from this
I don't know.
platform?
At this point, I really don't know.
It's not a question.
We may or we may not be.
Okay, it's not a question of the Anglophone institutions versus the Francophone institutions, or the large ones versus the smaller ones?
If it's anything, I would say it's the large ones versus the smaller ones. But I can't type it like that. It's, it's having the other thing, one of the other things that really went into our decision here is that there are other ARL libraries that have gone with the OCLC platform. And LAC has gone with OCLC. So LAC is able to adapt some of the needs for French cataloging and French libraries. And so it will be easier for some of the French libraries to adapt their processes to OCLC. But it's not a French library problem. It's complicated because the language makes it harder because we don't have authorities and stuff that we do for English. And the size of libraries and their matters too, but it's not, I would say, it's everything. It's not, you can't typify it by the size or French versus English being the main thing. They're certainly part of the picture, but not the thing, no.
One of the ideas of this shared library services platform was a common catalog for all Quebec university libraries. Will McGill still somehow be able to, at
Yes.
least in part,
Okay.
share in
Yeah.
that part of the project?
That's why I have all these good people who know exactly how to answer these questions. Sitting on the front row, notice.
Part of this, right now we're using WorldCat Local. Part of this would be moving WorldCat Local to WorldCat Discovery, their new version, which they're going to actually maintain now because they're not maintaining WorldCat Local anymore. Right now in WorldCat Local, there is a BCI-wide search. We are going to have that in WorldCat Discovery based on the holdings in OCLC, regardless of what happens with the rest of BCI. To anticipate perhaps somewhere where you were going with your question is another benefit of the BCI project was going to be easier interlibrary borrowing, to accept people from other institutions here and to allow our users to borrow at their institutions. We are absolutely committed to doing some technical work to make that as easy as possible. We know that since we're pulling out of this cooperative and that in and of itself is going to make it a little harder, we have to do some extra work to make it easy, and we are absolutely going to do that.
There are two other things I'm going to ask Jeffrey, put him a little bit on the spot here. But we know that by going with OCLC that, oh my gosh, okay, it's okay, because I've got two microphones. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but he's saying in the back it's okay. There are a couple of things. We take care of our collection more than anybody in this province does. And by streamlining things, we have been able to maintain that in a way that is 2/3 light years ahead of anybody else. Content is what people want. But we know that it's going to be harder. There'll be some adaptations, perhaps. I'm not even going to say harder. Adaptations of how we get to those things that we're going to have to teach ourselves, teach one another, and make sure that our users know. And so that's why I think Jeffrey needs to comment a little bit, I hope, on just what we're going to do with.
I think it comes down to strategy. For those who look at WorldCat Discovery and what you were seeing before, even if we rolled it out today, there are things that you can't do there that we know we're going to have to do. And this is where I tie it to having not remote storage, because I don't like to call it storage, a collection delivery service that will run out of a facility at MAC campus because we're going to have to deliver it. If things aren't on the shelf, you have to allow people to browse them. How you do that? By call number, by title, by other things. There are things that we know WorldCat Discovery will not give us, and that we have the commitment to build those tools that will be necessary. That there may be additional layers or other things that we're just going to have to do. As a strategy, we will be pulling back together, reconstituting a WorldCat Discovery work group, and when we feel the time is right, we would roll that. We would go ahead, because we're not waiting on BCI at this point, or that process. We can roll out WorldCat Discovery when it is ready, and then we would look to roll off of Aleph hopefully by the beginning of fiscal year 20. Is that right? No.
Yeah, it's over a year from now.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
There's all these questions, but we
Yeah.
can't roll off of it until we actually have
Right.
something in place that works.
Yeah.
So we do know the shortcomings, and we will have staff continue to work, and we will make the commitment to build tools that allow our faculty to work with it.
So there had been talk of having a new system in place by the fall. Am I understanding that that's not going to be possible?
I would say we're not rushing anything. It will really be the WorldCat Discovery group looking again, what's the current state of discovery, what are some configurations that will maximize. If we roll it out then and it makes sense, fine. If we can't do it till December, then that's when we do it. If we can't do it till next summer, that's when we do it. We were also committed to doing this right, in doing a right process in this migration. So there's no secret deadlines that any of us have. The process will have to take care of itself.
And from an acquisitions point of view, it's easiest to change systems at the beginning of a fiscal year. And we're certainly not ready to do it in a couple of months. Okay, so it's really tough when you have to cross over fiscal years.
And it's not just us that's going to be involved. These cloud systems have a lot more real-time integrations with campus systems for things like financial systems and patron data. So we have to get on campus IT's schedule for this stuff, and they're changing HR systems over there. We'll probably go before then, but we don't know. So, we'll see what happens with Workday. So, it's not just us saying, yeah, that's the best date for us. It'll be fine. The vendor's going to have opinions because they have other, partners that they're trying to get migrated. So this is going to be a big negotiation in terms of time frame. Okay.
There's a possibility that BCI will go with OCLC. If they do, we're back in. We will, you'll be back in your working groups and we'll figure out how to do everything as a province. Other questions? Hey, either I answered, either we prepared really well and I stated answers to things I thought y'all questions you might have, or the people who are worried aren't speaking up. So, yeah.
Actually, maybe it would be helpful to know, for everyone to know how we are going to communicate this with others and with campus.
Okay. So,
strategic plan for communications on this.
Okay, so we have a communications group that made several recommendations, and one of their central recommendations was that for issues that are as strategic and important as this one, we need to announce it face-to-face at a Dean's Corner, and then to follow up immediately with something written that goes out to everyone. And so we already have that drafted, and it will, as soon as we get out of here, we will do it. We will be taking the letter saying that we have opted out has been signed last week, but we'll be delivering it today because you were the first people who had to know, meaning that that BCI doesn't know yet. Okay, so they'll know, and I'll be talking to some of my colleagues as well, picking up the phone and talking to them. So have I forgotten anything?
And maybe one side note, I'm also will be attending all of the various faculty advisory boards for the various libraries and broaching both the BCI and the library platform, and with early thinking on storage. There, I went with that bad term again.
Yeah, I was going to say
collection delivery system, and sort of how those
CDL.
things are all going to tie together. So we'll be doing that. Actually, I have like 3 or 4 of them already scheduled in the next month.
Yeah, and we have an ongoing.
Sorry, there's one last thing.
Yes.
Obviously, the strategic priorities website will change because right now the priority about BCI is about the collaboration, but seeing that we're not doing that,
Right.
we'll see a different
Right.
a different iteration of that priority go up very soon.
Yeah, it was important to us, and I got lots of people saying, you absolutely have to tell people what we're really doing. And so that's what we're doing. Sometimes I've found in this province that it's difficult for some people to take no as an answer. And it's like, but you didn't really mean no. Well, yes, we really mean no. But no, one of the harder decisions that we've had to make, but given everything, I think that this is what we need to do. I know that, as I said, there's a values thing that goes on here, and so, you know, I can't change people's value system. I can just tell you what the reasons for decisions made. But there was another theme of what's going on here that I really, really wanted to make sure that people understood, is that there's no gaming in this. There isn't. And just in case those cynical among you who think that sometimes there is in bid processes or whatever, and I'm not saying that that stuff doesn't happen. It does. In this, particularly with McGill, there is no gaming. We're following the rules. We're doing it on the up and up. I come from an acquisitions background. I've always been of that ilk anyway. There are certain rules I question. Purchasing regulations are not one of them, because it's fiscal responsibility for money that's all of ours. I've always taken that very seriously. There is no gaming in this. There is none. And so we're doing everything absolutely 100% on the up and up, okay? And also part of that is at the point where we've made a decision, we need to tell people, because that's the right thing to do. You and all of our colleagues, so that they can then go and plan without this big McGill variable. We're big, we're Anglophone, we've done things in streamlined ways for a long time, more so than anybody. Okay, other questions? I know that we have, you know, to Jeffries, thank you very much for bringing up the fact that of course we are talking about this with our users. Of course we know that people will have questions. We know that there are people out there who will be more worried than others, and we need to make sure that our liaisons think about those. You have a conversation with those people before they come to you and are worried, because you carry the message.
Be a bit too early, but are we going, like, I was thinking about like other consortial opportunities, right? Like, are we going to be an island at this point? If
A
we
what?
leave- like an island, right? Like we're kind of are in Quebec if we leave BCI, right? I'm thinking about.
No.
No.
No, I mean, we collaborate at every point that we possibly can. Collaboration is a hugely important thing. If we did not collaborate in terms of buying, we would be sorry out of luck, both in terms of the country and the province, but also even some things that we do with ARL in North America. We would never, I mean, if you're by yourself, you're going to sink, you know? It's just that the water wings that were thrown to us, we didn't know if they were going to sink us or not. And so we have to make sure that we have water wings that keep us afloat in this one thing. Okay? Yeah.
You did mention a possibility if the BCI did go with OCLC that we'd be back in.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate that might influence the decision-making process of the
For
BCI
them?
folks at all? Yeah.
The decision-making process for this is the most impenetrable process I have ever encountered in terms of library land. I am not going to speculate. Decent question, but no, there's nothing predictable in this. Other questions? Okay, this is not the last time you you will have an opportunity to ask a question. And I mean, get with your ADs and either cheer or bleed on their carpets, whatever you want to do, or or whatever, because in the end, I know that people have thoughts and questions in their minds, and we're going to have to just work through all that. Okay? Okay. Thank you all. I think that spring is here. We're going to have one more blizzard that's only going to last for a day and a half. Okay. I'm hoping. Okay, is this it? Thank you. Thank you all.